The next day camping. Training for geniuses in Dining province is the training ground a lot of people have gathered. There and each of them has their own master badge according to the camp rules have to take them here, but Lucen forgot hers at her mother's house. She had put it in a glass frame. One of the soldiers approaches him and asks him where he is from. Lucen tells him that he is from Valle and that he is late. The other participants have already heard about him. They know he was invited here by the president himself. It seems to them that he has come here through contacts. The soldier says that they will follow with the men of the city of Yuan. After entering the camp, they are received by a ceremony of initiation. A huge door closes behind them. They do not understand what is happening and they ask the soldier what is happening. He answers that it is a test, that they have to get to the exit and that the one who don't make it, he goes home. Then the ground caves in and everyone falls down. They are in the background and see a corridor in front of them with a door at the end. Lucen senses that there are traps around everywhere. One of them says that there is nothing difficult here, and then his acquaintance yells at him from behind for not warned him of the pitfalls, but the man mockingly tells him that if he can't adjust to the complexities, then he shouldn't call himself a martial arts master and that he doesn't has room in this camp. The man says that they are from the same village and that they need to work together to get through the tests. The crowd agrees with him. He goes to and tells him that he is a stranger who doesn't know him and suggests that he go down the corridor first. A girl from the crowd defends him and he says that it's not fair. Lucen goes ahead and says that the tiger always marries alone and that only sheep walk in herds. The guy gets angry and asks who he called a sheep, but Lucen doesn't tell him. Listen and move forward. He falls into a trap and a large number of robots fall before him. Man in the crowd knows what kind of robot it is. Everyone else gets scared, but Lucen doesn't care what kind of. The crowd warns him that the robots activate if they see movement. Laughs at Lucen thinking that the robots they are about to kill him. The robot attacks Lucen, but he dodges the blow and grabs the robot's arm. The crowd is surprised. Lucen picks up the robot and slams it against the wall. The others seem to think that the robot is nothing more than a puppet and that it is not dangerous at all since Lucien has handled it with ease. One of them decides to fight himself against a robot. Wants to demonstrate by its own example that they are not dangerous. Kicks the robot's head with all his might and his head falls off. He turns towards the crowd and says happily that he was right, but then the headless robot tells him, hits and embeds him against the wall. Is then when the guy realizes that is not a rank 1 doll but a rank 2 killing machine. Guys try to revive the guy, but he's unconscious and Luce walks through the crowd of robots, breaking everyone in his path. He sees that each doll has a weakness, so he breaks them with ease. The soldier who has been following the robots sees that they are all out of action, cannot understand as a group. As teenagers he managed to break them all, but then the doors open and emerges from them. They shine, hitting with all his might the soldier who was the second part of cavalry in the command center. The major who in that eye is watching everything guarded all the soldiers of all of them detached 8 fighters who, more or less, 5 fighters based on strength and 3 based on speed and strength stood out among them. Movement. They also have a spiritual type among them. The strongest is an 18-year-old girl named Silene who awakened her talent 2 years ago and now she is getting closer to the second rank. This girl is the main find of his camp. The major says that the others are not bad either, and then he is very surprised when he sees something on the monitor at the same time in Polygon 7. If someone is done fighting the robots, she senses the danger ahead. Someone from rank 3 is standing outside that door. She enters and sees soldiers with shields preparing to attack. Meeting someone through another door. She doesn't understand what is happening here, so with her powers she sees 2 men fighting behind that wall. She sees Lucen's intimidating look and it scares her. She panics without understanding what fear was. The Lieutenant Colonel and Major Don King sees her when they arrive at the center. They also have no idea what is going on behind the door as all the cameras are broken and there is no information. From there the major orders them to bring him a copy of case number 12 is. So when the door is broken down and Lucen comes out, he takes the defeated soldier unconscious. The Lieutenant Colonel says, who is not from the city of Kunyang, orders him to tell them who he is. Lucen introduces himself and says that he is from the city of Valle. The eldest is impressed with him since they look like he broke all the robots. Expensive and crippled. The instructor Lucen says it was an accident. He also thought it was part of the test. The Lieutenant Colonel tests his abilities with his spiritual power, but he doesn't see anything in him. Congratulates him for passing the test, asks him to go to the shelter and rest, and she herself tells the older man that he is incredible. They know his results in the exam. No can understand how something like this is possible. She says she couldn't find anything on the test and says it should be added to the top 7 along with Sile, and Lucen realizes that she wanted to put him to test, so he hides all his abilities. The soldier tells Lucien that it is time to eat and takes him to the dining room. Lucen is hungry and asks if there is a lot of food there. The soldier tells him that he doesn't have to worry and that he can eat as much as he wants, a large amount of food, and orders 10 more servings of the same. One girl joins him as Yang, the one he met in the test. She has also passed the selection. Lu Ken immediately tells him to take his own food, that he does not want to give his to anyone else. Lucen says that the president of the association says that no one comes here, asks him how he did finished here. Yang says that it is time. Many people from Valle come here every year, but for many years none of them can pass the entrance exams, but if they pass early they are expelled for lack of dots. Light up question about Yang. Dots does not explain that the dots are used as coins, are necessary to use the resources of the camp, for example to use the gym or to eat, and at this moment 3 people have already been able to win them. Lucent wonders how they can get the first points. Can be earned by doing the best paper in the entrance exam. This is how these 3 they got their first points. The first of them is the talented rank 2 fighter, has the talent of the muscle of steel. The second is Mexican to a rank 2 wrestler with a speed amazing, and the 3 strongest in the training ground and the master of the spiritual power. If someone was walking and notices illusion and drops what is in his hands with a fright, if someone takes their plates with magic and asks if they know each other, they look like they answer yes. Young also tells her that in addition to these 3 there is a 4th who also distinguished himself in the exam, but he thinks it's just a story. He heard that this room broke by himself. All the robots also say that he's crazy and that he sent the instructor to the hospital. Lucen pretends not to know who he is talking about and thinks that even if Lucen has been done famous in Valle will be eclipsed by other geniuses. Even so, she tells him that she believes in him and that he can become so popular. How are those 3 so? When the camp staff approach them they say that 18 robots look damaged and allied to one of the instructors. They ask him to come with them, they need talk to them. Yang and everyone else in the dining room are in shock. Lucen says he hasn't finished his food and asks if he can take it. They allow him to take the food. Lucen se. He says goodbye to Ya. He doesn't even leave with them. They take him to the command center to see the lieutenant colonel. The lieutenant tells him that he has broken the robots that are worth 10 million each with a couple of blows and that none of them can be repaired. Says that after thinking about the situation they came to the conclusion that Lucen was not at fault and did the right thing. In that moment the oldest enters with the other 3 strongest contestants, congratulate them and tell them that surely already they know that the amount of resources they can use depends on their strength. The lieutenant colonel gives them cards with their points for overcoming the first challenge. To 3 of them are given gold cards with 100 points, but the angle card is white. No one has heard of that card and they think it has no points. They read the back of the card, the price of the food and everything else is said that he probably only has points for meat. The major says fight is jumping to conclusions too soon since his card has 1,000 points. The others are surprised. Kane intervenes in the conversation and says that he thought that everything was a matter of power, but it turns out that connections also matter. The second one supports him. Chaos says that everyone already knows and fight, there must be bribed everyone in this camp. Chaos rips off his shirt, he's furious. He says that if the points go to the strongest he has to show that he is the strongest. Lucen asks if that is exactly what he wants. The major tries to stop them, but the lieutenant colonel stops him. Lucen says that a hit is enough for him. He slaps it and Chaos flies against the wall, punching it through, and Lu Ken is left wondering if he has to pay for this damage. They are surprised to see what Lamenda had done and Lucen asks if she can go. The lieutenant tells her, how do you plan? Practice below. If you use points you can get their personal guidance. Lucen replies that thanks, but it is not necessary. Tells him that he has things important to do. The colonel tells him that it is more important than the orientation with the lieutenant colonel. Lucen tells him, that's right, I'm going to sleep. They are surprised. Upon hearing what Lucen said, the older man laughing says that this boy really went to sleep. The lieutenant wonders what is doing in the bedroom. There is no resource. The older one tells him that it is the first time he has seen such a genius. Interesting, he just does whatever he wants. Says you don't get it. He's a sharpening stone is excellent for stimulating the rapid growth of others. The lieutenant tells him if he remembers his training. The older man answers that of course and that his chest hurts with just mentioning it. In that training ground he surpassed all the geniuses and trampled everyone, was worthy of being the king. The lieutenant says that it is so. Those endowed with the talent of strength have a Incredibly powerful advantage in the early stages. They can easily have a combat strength of tens of thousands and even defeat enemies of higher levels, but the observation speed, ability, judgment, tactical experience, strategy, strength is not just power. Those warriors who rely only on the strength granted by their buff talent will never last for long, and I am afraid that will also happen to Listen. At that very moment Listen was fighting a zombie. Applause. Listen says that it turns out that in his life he was a quasi-master of the 6th level, which is equivalent to the level of Chao as the president of the Martial Arts Association. No wonder he is so strong. If I hadn't used all my mental strength to block his earlier attack, I'm afraid that the skills of martial arts and combat experience are true riches in the dream world. Body technique. The martial art of clapping attack, the attack of legs, the fight with the spear and with the sword. Human capacity is limited to one person, can't do everything perfectly, but I'm standing still on the shoulders of countless people. Shine says that he understands all the aspects and that he has no defect. These are his perfect martial arts. There is also mental strength. If not outside of mental strength, perhaps he could not have resisted the zombie forest, but unfortunately his use of mental strength, it is still very basic, and you can only use it against zombies if you are facing a level 6 expert. You don't know what would happen. I need to further improve my mental strength. Training. Fight. He begins to train his mental strength and says to himself that he needs to focus on internal contemplation without letting external thoughts disturb you. Focus on your mind. Consolidate your spirit. They shine, touch their spiritual self, and from this a light emerges. Listen is surprised where we see that he is going through a transformation and breaks its limits. Listen says that he has moved forward again and who hasn't seen the results of his life in a long time and doesn't know what will happen this time. He asks Sagi to help him. Show your profile there. It responds very well, accessing the information. Basic name Lusing Vivi. During June of the year 297 of the calendar of arts. Martial arts until March of the year 452 of the calendar of the martial arts force. Martial 7th rank martial artist at the age of 18, causing sensation in the city of Valley. Lucent, surprised, says that he can't believe that he has reached the 7th level of great master, and who in ancient times could be considered a regional feudal lord and still today is considered a important figure. Lucent says to himself that by the way, now that he has reached the level of grandmaster, should improve his evaluation and asks there to look for the techniques of refining the stellar body, the natural breathing method and crystal visualization. There will. He answers very well and immediately shows him the advanced techniques of the stellar body, natural breathing and listen crystal visualization. Says with his level 3 authority, seek more advanced techniques. He immediately opens the first scroll where he tells him that it is the divine record of the king of the underworld, created by Dunji Feng, a strong 8th grade warrior of the World Martial Alliance and later included in the Fire Seed project. They look surprised, say that it is a complete technique and that it is Pluto's spiritual enlightenment sutra. Is not. No wonder this combat technique is not on the list of skills. Is a technique specially designed for spiritual masters. Not only includes combat techniques and tips that use spiritual energy, but also the most important thing is that this technique is completely different from other techniques that use energy. Spiritual, that essence of the sutra of the god that illuminates the king of the underworld uses the spiritual energy to building another body within the body of the martial warrior, could be said to be obtaining a second self in this body. It can be refined to the level of having the same muscle fibers, cells and even genes. All this is just for a purpose to increase every aspect of himself without leaving a single space unfilled. In the first level of the Sutra of Lighting, God of the King of the Underworld is to use mental power to strengthen the organs of the body and thus achieving the effect of increasing ki and blood, and this is exactly what more is missing. Listen says to himself that he already has a way to increase his combat power, but the basic level of has not been able to change, has always been an obstacle for him to move forward. He has even more to overcome, and all his skills and attributes can improve. He says it's amazing that he had underestimated the wisdom of martial practice, which is a product of more than 10,000 years of this type of technique. It's so amazing that I wouldn't have even thought about it. I'll never forget that name, but says that Duan was one of the foremost beings even among level 11 strong, however even a person. So he couldn't stop the destruction of human civilization. He says to himself that he still has a lot to do and that he still has a long way to go and that he cannot waste not even a minute or a second. You have to do your best to become stronger. A month later in the meditation room is found if someone training their skills. The lieutenant tells him that he has progressed quickly and can now handle 3-star abilities and can handle 6-star skills that will mean you have advanced to the level of a mind master. First grade if someone thanks you, but the lieutenant tells you that she has noticed something. It seems that there is a big gap in his mental strength, and if someone has left some kind of psychological trauma. If someone remembering Lusing says yes, and he asks if there is any solution for that problem. The lieutenant tells him that it is very simple and tells him that he finds the person who caused that trauma and that he made, then naturally there will be no trauma if someone just stays screaming. And the lieutenant asks what's wrong since she's in a period of rapid growth of her ability. If someone thinking for herself to fight has been in a state of decline lately and his abilities remain the same, and maybe he will be able to beat him. The lieutenant had retired and the older one asks him how is the special ability saying Link. The lieutenant replies that he has a great talent, only that his character has become a bit weak. The major tells him that she can't expect everyone to be like her, and also her personality is better than that of Lucent. The lieutenant, he says that he has also taught him everything, but a month or two have passed now and he is still the same. The older man tells him that he always does the same every time he goes to deliver the food. He's sleeping. I guess he's useless. Do you remember what you said when you trained the students? You told him that if he likes he can stay in the bedroom every day sleeping and no one will bother him. There shouldn't be. Having said that, the older one tells him, smiling, what if he uses it as a sharpening stone? Lieutenant tells her that whatever, and that I know how to teach her well, and otherwise she hit him during the closing inspection. Meanwhile we see Jean, who is cleaning. A girl asks if she hadn't finished yet and that she's there to help her. Young tells her thanks. She sighing says yes. Really envy those who got 100 points. Those points can last 2 months, and that poor people like they who have to buckle down and starve for a meal or two to get enough points. She asks him what he's been doing light on lately and he says yes. She has a good relationship with him. Young tells herself that she has no idea. Girl tells him that Lusing guy was so arrogant when he first came. He was so tough that he made all the soldiers in the camp lost their temper, but the result withered. The next day fight has been behind closed doors, so his skills have probably already been surpassed by others, and since his natural abilities have been gradually overcome, Sure chooses to hide like a turtle to increase the level of mystery. Young says that he is not like that since they look like he is not that kind of person. The girl tells him to rest a bit and that she will do the rest of the work. Young hear a commotion outside. They said they are going to take a look since it seems that Kaz is testing quadruple gravity. Surprised, Young says yes, it's true or false, that's too much extreme, and that the last time she entered the gravity chamber and that she only lasted 20 minutes with twice the gravity. The friend tells her to go take a look. At that very moment, Lushing headed their way. We passed with Chaos where it is at the gravity machine, where one of the observers says that it is being approaching 4 minutes and it's half a minute more than last time. Chaos ends his workout as the crowd praises him, telling him that he is awesome and that they couldn't last more than 10 minutes in the middle of gravity, but Chaos managed to stay for 4 minutes in gravity 3. They tell him it's incredible. Chaos tells him that they were surprised by so little. One of them calls him brother Mayhem. It seems that soon you will adapt to 4 times the gravity and will be able to advance to the warrior rank of 3rd level. At that time there will be no one in the training camp that can be your rival. Chaos says that is that guy doing? He tells him if he means losing he is still the same usual. Every time the students go to hand and they see him sleeping, Chaos says that even though he was inferior a Lasenga at first, even a slow tortoise can catch up with the sleeping rabbit, and he slept the whole time a month and wasted the 1,000 accumulated points in vain. Now I'm not sure that he is going to lose against Lusing. At that very moment Lusing tells him that he will let in. Lusing asks if it is the Chaos gravity training room, tells him that he finally came out after sleeping for more than a month and only now thinking about coming to train in the gravity room. Lusing says he didn't realize I spend a lot of points on food, so he'll start with 3 hours, and says that it is a good time to test the growth of his strength. Getting ready to boot. Countdown 5. Chaos tells you sleep all the day in the room and still wants to increase your strength. Chaos tells him how dares to enter the gravity chamber without warming up first. 3. Due to the influence of gravity, please use the physical button. 2 users says that the gravity training room is not a game if you don't follow the proper movements and warm-ups before. Enduring external pressure is very easy to suffer internal ruptures and bleeding without being able to move at all because of arrogance. A Chaos will end badly with a silly expression. Says that the gravity system should already be activated, and because there is no reaction from his part of the people around say if that is not Listen who is in the machine. Gravity fight just made a sonic boom in the gravity environment in. Seriously, what's going on? Lucen says he feels such a relaxing feeling. Chaos thinks that Lucen can't take it anymore and wants to stop the person. It's screaming, they say. Chaos happened. Screaming says, I activate gravity 4. Lucen says that the sensation after the increase in gravity feels like this one. One of them says that he can't take it anymore since he sees Lucen with his arms on the ground. At that very moment it is happening if someone and says that she is very tired already. That the instructor is very strict. She turns and says because there are so many people there. She is shocked to see the crowd screaming and says that they are watching to see. Was shocked. Chaos nervous could only say why. Lissinger is so loud. Chaos with tears says he didn't sleep for almost 2 months. I shouldn't have gotten over it by now. They look like quadruple gravity. It's still viable and he feels like he's gotten used to it. Applause. The people shouting say that the rate has increased. Gravity level 5. Another say what is happening in the gravity chamber. They run quickly. This guy was wondering if what he sees is real, and in the crowd he says that it is impossible. What you are seeing, gravity increased 5 times. Lucen says that gravity at 5 is almost adequate for his normal state of cultivation. I should be able to do the movements of the stellar refinement technique, but however if the increases the more it will be more difficult to move. They look says that it is not even close to being enough. He needs more pressure, a pressure that can put him to the limit. Cause to see Lucen, he says that maybe not can take more of the effect of increased gravity and will end. One of them says 5 times gravity. It's really impressive that he can hold out for so long. If he were the no, I couldn't hold out for a second. The people who just saw what I is doing Lucen are so surprised that they have no idea what is happening, while at that very moment the lieutenant asks the major how many students have left the camp on. The eldest responds that they are all pampered at home. The pride of their families. Here they face difficulties and it's normal that they can't take it anymore. The older man tells him to look at the video camera. Gravity and body refining. Maybe someone broke the record by seeing the camera. Was surprised and says that someone really broke the historical record of the gravity chamber. The lieutenant told him says it was surely Chaos. Remember that he was almost able to withstand gravity. For the older one tells him it's not him. Is someone I would never have thought of. They look. Gravity increased to 8. The astonished lieutenant tells him that you just said you mean Lucen El Mayor. He says what level is he now? The lieutenant answers that he doesn't know, but he is the person we are looking for and we finally found him. Lucen says gravity at 8 is still too much for his current strength and he's almost at his limit. So he starts using his new technique. Says that he was only able to refine the part of the heart and his energy has increased almost 10%. So this is the record. Divine King of the Underworld. Lucen tells himself that now he will see. What is your limit? The crowd was saying you plan to do since you are in gravity 8 and shouldn't be able to move. Chaos says to himself what's going on. Music. There is so much gravity that outside the camera affects. Chow wonders what demon made Lucen to be so strong. Gravity increased to 10. Lucero says that the bones in his body are being crushed and his blood seems to be clotted, not to mention the slightest movement is trying to stay conscious. This is gravity increased at 10. It is not something that can resist. That is just what Lucen wants. It is said that he is the only one who can change the future and destroy that terrible ending. A person who cultivates advanced techniques. An extremely talented person. A person with unlimited resources. A person who can break their limits. Fight manages to stand up and with a shout says that he has overcome gravity at 10. Then Lucen leaves the gravity room. One of the girls gives him a towel. They look a little surprised. He tells him thank you. Fight. He says to himself if he had known that it would only take so little time would not have spent 3 hours of points. Fight. Seeing his phone note that broke the record and comes with a points reward. Has received a points reward for breaking the record. Total 4.33 points. Close people say you have 4-digit points and all of them together stain half. One of them note that their balance is 6 points. And he says he hasn't eaten meat in 3 days. Fight. He says he has more than 4,000 points and should be able to freely eat whatever they look like. Begins to walk and the crowd wonders where he is going. Another yelling tells them to follow him. For a look. Yang says that Lucen has such a strong presence. 10 times gravity is really not human. It is too scary. Rose above all, that figure is like that of a moving tiger followed by 100 beasts. The friend of Jean says that Lucen is a talent and broke the record for chaos in the gravity room. Could it be that his blood value and energy has reached the 4th rank? Surprised Yang says that in that direction is the technique room. Body. We go to the room where one of the fastest is in the technique room. Body workout completed. Workout At 87% difficult completed, he says that each result of the training in the room of body technique will be in charge in the terminal of the Guerrero League, which allows you to check your classification. World champion in agility at any time, says he has exactly outperformed the half of the world's population. There must be several billion at least. Indeed, there is a great distance between an ordinary person and he. Woke up with a speed type talent and received private lessons from instructor King. The distance between him and the others is immeasurable now. As for others, only convert training can benefit from leaving the room, saying what is happening and where did the people go. The screaming redhead asks what is happening and what is he looking at. He asks. He replies that he is seeing. Obviously he asks if he is Lizangel Sleepyhead from the city of Valle, and you think that Sleepyhead can break my record. The guy tells him who he is. Both look and ask what happened. All launchers are on full power. Fight thinks to himself that he just needs to dodge the lightning bolts, and it seems like it's not possible to predict since direction the lightning bolts will shoot is one of the challenges in agility training, but for him that challenge is not nothing at all. The amazed crowd say as it is possible. There are thousands of laser probes in the culture room. No one knows what will happen next with such a density, and the redhead often tells him that if he is sure that he is really entering the grow room of the body for the first time, he answers that yes, they all came with him, and that before coming here he even broke the all-time record in the gravity room with the gravity increased to 10. The redhead falls to his knees and says that Lusen was not a strength-type talent, even he was asleep for a month. How is it possible? The gap is huge. The lieutenant says that if it really is training body techniques for the first time, even if I went hundreds of times, I couldn't make it that easy. Movements instead of being a simple reaction seems more like precognition. The older man asks what he wants to do. The lieutenant tells him that it's not a big deal. Lusen says that the training is really good. He feels that he can move fastest past the second stage of agility training. People, they mumble that it's somehow different from stage 2 they've seen before. The older one says it's not that it's simple. It is that he looks very relaxed during the process. The lieutenant says that he would like to see how far he can go. The eldest with a smile says that it is the first time that the two think the same thing. The third stage of agility training begins. The amazed crowd says that this is phase 3. Says it's getting harder and harder this time. They even tried block his evasion route with light, but it's not bad since Lucien will also show some of his abilities. Music, the eldest says that Lusing is in a state of deep immersion. Even not. There are many veterans of 4 or 5 ranks who have already been on the battlefield who can perfect the level of agility up to this level. In the case of the eldest, it was not until he was 22 years that he managed to do it. Lusen says that the level of difficulty begins to increase, so it is difficult to predict it only with his mental energy. The greatest says from now on is when it is not so easy anymore. Music, some people say where is it? Light, he is so fast that it is not possible to follow him with your eyes, so it seems that level 3 100% body dexterity disappeared. The eldest says that the new generation is incredible, but that should be all for today, seeing as how he surpassed the gravity increased to 10 and reached the agility level 3 should be exhausted by now, so let's go back. The lieutenant will says no. Lusing seems to want to continue. The older surprised says that it's impossible. Even he has barely touched stage 4 body agility level 4. 0% start training. One of the crowd pointing says that which demon is, and if it can really be avoided. The older man says that he has finally reached that intensity. Lusen says that right now the wind's breath bonus is nearing its limits, so he proceeds to use the Divine Rebirth Sutra. It's as if time slowed down. He says that he remembers correctly. In the technical terms of psychotherapy, it should be called a sense of time that shows that mental strength has reached a qualitative change, and that change occurs when the third psychic level is reached. That is to say, it is finally officially in the ranks of third-level psychics. The lieutenant says that Lusen is actually a master spiritual. The major tells the lieutenant that he is, making the lieutenant respond that she wants to try again with him. Lusen realizes the lieutenant says that Lusing is really a teacher and that he is not inferior to her. Lusen says that he has reached his cap. I didn't expect to activate time sense since that ability consumes a lot of mental energy, and also someone came to interrupt him training. Completed. The progress of this training session in phase 4 is 56%. In this training has exceeded the 97% of the other participants. Congratulated Guerrero with the number 28 56 32. The screaming crowd say that this result is really of a Student another from the crowd says he is already ahead of hundreds of millions of people. The redhead says that he is only ahead of 52% of people, as it is possible to look what? Beat by 45%, and he's still a guy with strength, talent, fight. He says that there are still 3% of people who are better than him, moving 3% of everyone will surely be several million. Says that it is still very weak and he needs to work twice as hard in his training. The lieutenant congratulates him and tells him that you just broke the all-time record for the gravity room, and you've also set a new record in the movement skill room of this base, where you plan to go next to the training room of real combat or to the mental power training room. Lucent tells him that he is not going anywhere since it's time to eat, and that the older one will go to the dining room. Listening to Lucent, he begins to laugh and say that this guy really is like that. 3 hours later we see entering the command center and says if the lead instructor is looking for him. The lieutenant replies that they do look. Greet Instructor King. The instructor, who is not the oldest, tells him that this time he had him come to perform a skill test. The lieutenant told him says that each dormitory is equipped with that blood-drawing needle to measure blood energy and will. He says if he has measured his blood energy in these last days. Fight. He answers that he has not done it since the needles of blood draw in the bedroom can't be inserted. The older says this guy has definitely reached the 3rd level. Would not be possible to break the gravity room record without this physical resistance. The major tells the lieutenant to take out the gold blood extraction needle. The lieutenant tells him that it is a blood-drawing needle prepared for 5th level warriors. It should be enough for you to use it. The lieutenant proceeds to draw blood from Lyseeing. The needle projects the value of blood energy 24.65, warrior level 3. The lieutenant says to herself that it's been almost 10 years since she's seen such a young 3rd level warrior. Major Lama. Oh, he tells him that we are going to see what his combat power is now. They look, thinking that they are going to do a test. Then he will give everything to see how far his limit reaches. Activate the breathing of fire. 8 times star power. Combat power rating 271,000. The most amazed says he achieved a fighting force close to the of a class 5 warrior. The older, smiling, tells Listen that he has graduated from boot camp, and what you want to do next is in your hands, and remember to submit a report so that the Warriors Association register your new level. Listen thanks the Instructor King, but the lieutenant tells him to wait a moment since there is still one more test. It is called a crystal of energy, is a type of unique crystalline mineral discovered over 100 years ago in the Astral Gorge in the Kingdom. Leon has a great affinity with spiritual energy. After being developed, became a specialized tool for measuring the intensity of mental energy. Solo. You have to touch it with your hand, and by sending your mental energy, you can measure your spiritual intensity. The greater you tells the lieutenant that it has increased even again. The purity of her mental energy has improved a lot. Reminds her that the last time it was only 3 points. Light tells him that he is fine and that he will try to fight. Take the crystal and she emerges a great brightness. The major tells the lieutenant that if Lissam has half its power. The lieutenant tells him to be quiet and not to bother her. 113.5. 1 for that mental. 20.3. The lieutenant says how is a mental purity of 20.3 is more than double that of the lieutenant. She says the mental strength for a psychic, every point of mental purity is extremely difficult to achieve, is like folding and compressing. Repeatedly fold a common towel until the towel is compressed into the size of a coin. She took 2 years of hard training just to nurture a single lucent point. She is 18 years old and her ability, the term genius, is really enormous. It is no longer enough to describe it. The greatest mocker is said that absolutely impressive, so impressive that Rosa divined the lieutenant a little furious to give a good blow, and he asks Lucen if he has a teacher. Lucen replies that if he has a teacher, your teacher has taught you a unique method of cultivating mental energy. He also taught you the techniques and methods to use mental energy. The lieutenant tells her that it is like her. I thought it was obvious that he had a master. Silaseng would have come here alone. With her talent it would be hard for her to accept even with a teacher. That shows how powerful Lucan is in terms of talent, supposes Lucent. Awakened his talent was not long ago. Lucent replies that he has less than 3 months. The lieutenant and the commander, upon hearing what Lucent said, they were shocked. The lieutenant tells him that awakened his talent 3 months ago, and you have already reached level 3 intensity in his mental energy, in addition to having a purity so high. Even after several decades in the Mental Masters Association it would be difficult find someone like you in the next few years. Lazenda, amazed, says there is also a teachers association. The lieutenant tells him that the association of mental teachers is completely different due to the Rarity of awakenings of mental talents. Even with the large population in our country, less than 1% have the talent of a mental teacher. Probably your teacher deliberately did not tell you on purpose so as not to affect your training, since the more knowledge you have, the more distractions arise and the purity of the mental energy may decrease. However, as you are a genius, I would like Lusum to join the association. Could provide you with more resources for your training. This is your badge. And he tells Lusum to take her to the association and they will give him the corresponding help. They fight, thinking through. Takes the badge that has never actually seen its master's appearance anymore. That every time he receives his guide it is in a very mysterious way. The lieutenant tells him that his teacher must be a person extraordinary. Usually when a talent as powerful as the of Lusum, people would regard it as a treasure. Lusum, thinking that now it is more difficult to explain the use of the talent as reason. How nice it would be to be able to admit it openly that your teacher, he comes from the future, 10,000 years in the future, and has a power of level 11 and is called Dung. The eldest tells him that although he seems to be enjoying the conversation, he would like to interrupt for a moment. He says he sent for him to talk about some matters. The first thing I had to do was to give birth to her in 5 million. Although the training camp is not over yet, it seems that you are number 1 in this camp. This is an additional award for your outstanding performance. Lieutenant tells him it's the most they could get. Asks if he needs to stay in the boot camp. The major tells him he can do whatever he wants. If he doesn't, he wants to stay, he can leave at any time. Lusum tells him he will stay a while more. Immediately Lusum retires. The older says he bets he will stay just for the food. The lieutenant says she's sure Lucian will definitely cause a change. Impressive.